The parade ground was silent in a way that felt heavy, like the air itself was holding its breath. Boots were aligned with mathematical precision. Shoulders were squared, eyes stared forward, unblinking, as the morning sun reflected sharply off polished brass and freshly pressed uniforms. This was inspection day, never forgiving, never gentle. A day when mistakes were magnified and mercy was scarce. Captain Roland Mercer walked slowly down the line, his boots striking the concrete with deliberate authority. Each step echoed, not just on the ground but in the chests of the recruits standing at attention. Mercer was known throughout the academy for one thing above all else: control. He believed fear was the most effective tool of leadership, and he wielded it without hesitation. He stopped abruptly. In front of him stood recruit number 417, Private Elena Cross. She was smaller than most of the others, not weak, but compact, contained. Her uniform was immaculate, her boots gleamed, her posture was flawless, yet there was something Mercer immediately disliked. She was silent, not nervous silence, not defiant silence, just quiet. Her eyes were steady, focused somewhere beyond him, as if she were listening to something no one else could hear. Mercer narrowed his eyes. "Recruit," he said sharply. "Yes, sir," she replied instantly. Her voice was calm, too calm. "What's your name?" "Private Elena Cross, sir." No hesitation, no tremor. Mercer circled her slowly, like a predator evaluating prey. "You've been quiet since day one. No questions, no complaints, no mistakes." "Yes, sir." That answer annoyed him more than resistance ever could. "You think that makes you disciplined?" he snapped. "You think silence equals strength?" She did not answer. Mercer stopped directly in front of her. "I asked you a question." She met his gaze. "No, sir." The surrounding recruits stiffened. A few instructors glanced over. Mercer smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant one. "Then what is it, Private?" he said loudly. "Fear, confusion, or are you just hiding because you can't keep up?" Her jaw tightened slightly. "Nothing more." Mercer turned to the others. "This," he said, gesturing at her, "is what weakness looks like when it tries to disguise itself as obedience." A ripple of discomfort moved through the formation. "Speak up," Mercer barked. "Say something." She inhaled once, slowly. "Sir, with respect, I'm following orders." "Wrong," Mercer snapped. "You're avoiding scrutiny, and in my unit, avoidance is failure." He raised his voice deliberately, ensuring everyone could hear. "You think staying quiet will protect you? That it makes you invisible?" She said nothing. Mercer leaned in close enough that only she could hear him. "Silence doesn't make you strong, Private. It makes you irrelevant." Then he stepped back and addressed the entire formation. "Let this be a lesson," he announced. "If you don't assert yourself, the world will walk right over you. And I will personally make sure you learn that." He turned back to her. "Drop your pack." She obeyed instantly. "Push-ups, now, until I tell you to stop." She dropped to the ground without protest. 10, 20, 30. Her arms shook slightly, but her form remained perfect. Mercer watched, arms crossed, satisfied. "Still quiet," he said mockingly. "Still pretending this doesn't affect you." Sweat dripped from her brow onto the concrete. "Yes, sir," she replied between breaths. That calm again. It infuriated him. "Get up," Mercer said abruptly. She stood. "You think endurance makes you special?" he asked. "You think suffering quietly earns respect?" She looked straight ahead. "No, sir." "Then what do you think earns respect?" he demanded. She paused. "Just for a moment." "Consistency," she said. A murmur rippled through the line. Mercer's eyes flashed. "Watch your tone." "Yes, sir." Before he could respond, a sharp voice cut across the ground. "That's enough, Captain." Everyone froze. Colonel James Harrington stood near the command building, hands clasped behind his back. He wasn't scheduled to attend inspections. He rarely intervened. Mercer stiffened. "Sir, I know exactly what you were doing," Harrington said calmly. "Carry on. But I'll be observing." Mercer swallowed his irritation and nodded. "Yes, sir." He moved on, but the damage was done. His authority felt thinner. Inspection ended without further incident. The recruits were dismissed. Elena Cross remained where she was until ordered otherwise. Later that afternoon, Mercer sat in his office, reviewing files. His irritation hadn't faded. If anything, it had sharpened. He pulled up Cross's record. Basic background. No disciplinary actions. High physical scores. Average psychological profile. Boring. Then he noticed a sealed addendum. Classified. His curiosity flared. He tried to open it. Access denied. Mercer frowned. That night, an emergency briefing was called. All senior officers were summoned. Mercer entered the briefing room confident, only to find Colonel Harrington, 2 generals, and a civilian official already seated. The atmosphere was tense. Harrington gestured for Mercer to sit. "We've received confirmation," Harrington said, "that the consultant arriving tomorrow has already been embedded in the recruit program." Mercer frowned. "Consultant, sir?" "Yes," Harrington said, "a specialist assigned to evaluate command conduct, psychological pressure protocols, and leadership ethics within the academy." Mercer's stomach tightened slightly. She was placed under observation to see how she would be treated without her identity influencing behavior. Mercer felt a strange chill. Harrington continued, "Captain Mercer, do you recall your interaction this morning with Private Elena Cross?" The room was silent. "Yes, sir," Mercer said carefully. "Good," Harrington said, "because Private Cross is not a recruit." Mercer blinked. "Sir, she is Major Elena Cross," Harrington said evenly. "Decorated officer, field strategist, advisor to the Defense Oversight Council." The words landed like a physical blow. "She volunteered for this assignment," Harrington continued, "specifically to observe misuse of authority in training environments." Mercer's mouth went dry. "The addendum you attempted to access is sealed by congressional authority." Mercer stared at the table. "Major Cross submitted her preliminary report this afternoon," Harrington said. "Before you even finished inspection." Mercer finally looked up. "Sir, she noted," Harrington said calmly, "that at no point did you attempt correction. Only humiliation." The civilian official spoke for the first time. "She also noted your belief that fear creates discipline." Mercer felt heat rising in his face. Harrington stood. "Major Cross will address the staff tomorrow. You will attend." The next morning, the recruits stood assembled again. This time, Elena Cross stood at the front, not in recruit fatigues, but in a sharply pressed officer's uniform. Her insignia caught the light. There was no triumph in her expression. No smugness. Just calm. Captain Mercer stood in formation, stiff and silent. Major Cross stepped forward. "I was assigned here to observe," she said, her voice carrying without effort. "Not to provoke. Not to test limits. Simply to exist within your system and see how it responded." She paused. "Silence was not my weakness," she continued. "It was my restraint." Her eyes moved briefly, just briefly, to Mercer. "Power reveals itself in how it treats those who cannot respond freely." The recruits listened, rapt. "I was humiliated," she said plainly. "Not because I deserved it, but because someone needed to feel superior." She took a breath. "I did not speak up because I did not need to. Truth does not require volume." She turned to the command staff. "Strength is consistency. Honor is accountability. And leadership is what you do when you think no one important is watching." The silence afterward was profound. Captain Mercer was relieved of command that afternoon. No applause followed. No celebration. Major Cross returned to her advisory role quietly, just as she had entered. Weeks later, a new training doctrine was implemented, one emphasizing correction over cruelty, discipline without degradation. Among the recruits, one lesson lingered stronger than any shouted order. That dignity endures, that restraint is power, and that true courage doesn't need to shout, because it speaks through action, integrity, and unwavering calm. At Grow for Justice, this is the kind of truth we believe in. Because when cruelty screams, integrity whispers. The academy did not erupt when Captain Mercer was relieved of command. There was no dramatic announcement, no public disgrace shouted across the parade ground. His name simply disappeared from schedules. His office door was locked by noon. By evening, his authority had evaporated like mist under sunlight. That, more than any shouting, unsettled everyone. Silence again, but this time, it belonged to justice. Major Elena Cross did not remain at the academy long after her address. She declined interviews, refused commendations, turned down a formal ceremony that had been hastily proposed by public affairs. Recognition changes behavior, she told Colonel Harrington quietly. I was here to observe it. Still, her presence lingered. Instructors began second-guessing their words. Recruits noticed corrections delivered without venom. Punishments became proportional. Yelling became rare, not because people were afraid of oversight, but because they had been seen. Mercer, meanwhile, sat alone in temporary quarters on the edge of the base, awaiting formal review. For the first time in decades, no one deferred to him. No one flinched when he spoke. No one feared his silence. That was when the truth began to settle in. He replayed the inspection over and over in his mind. Not her push-ups, not the colonel's interruption, but the moment she had said a single word. Consistency. It haunted him. He had mistaken quiet for submission. Stillness for weakness. He had believed authority was proven by how loudly it could dominate space. And he had been wrong. The review board convened a week later. Mercer entered the room stiff-backed, prepared for accusation, defense, judgment. But Major Cross was not there. Instead, her written report was read aloud. It was meticulous, clinical, almost gentle. She described his methods without malice. Documented patterns without exaggeration. Not once did she attack his character. That omission hurt more than any condemnation. She does not accuse Captain Mercer of cruelty, the chair read. She identifies a culture that rewarded fear and overlooked dignity. Mercer felt something crack. She notes that misuse of power is rarely born of hatred. It is born of habit. The board deliberated. When the verdict came, it was decisive but measured. Mercer was stripped of command authority, reassigned to administrative duty pending retirement eligibility, and ordered to undergo leadership ethics remediation. No disgrace, no redemption speech, just consequences. Meanwhile, the recruits continued training under interim leadership. Private number 417 no longer existed. But the memory of her did. Among the recruits, her story became quiet legend. Not exaggerated, not embellished, passed on carefully, like something fragile and important. She never argued, she never begged, she didn't fight back, she just waited. One evening, a young recruit named Davis stayed behind after drills, staring at the now empty parade ground. He had watched Mercer tear into others before, had learned to stay loud, stay sharp, stay aggressive. Now he wasn't sure anymore. When Major Cross returned briefly to collect final documentation, Davis found the courage to approach her. "Ma'am," he said, standing rigid. "May I ask you something?" She nodded. "You may. Why didn't you stop him sooner?" Davis asked. "You could have ended it immediately." She studied him for a moment. "Because then the story would have been about me," she said. "Not about the system." He frowned slightly. "Justice," she continued, "is not about exposure. It's about change. And change only lasts when people see themselves clearly." She gestured toward the training grounds. "If I had spoken sooner, he would have been a villain. Instead, he became a mirror." Davis swallowed. "What if someone breaks under that pressure?" he asked. Her expression softened. "Then the system is already broken," she said. "And that must be fixed, not hidden." Weeks passed. The Academy's oversight reforms expanded beyond one base. Anonymous reporting channels were created. Instructors underwent evaluation by peers and subordinates alike. Quietly, without spectacle. Elsewhere, Mercer attended his remediation sessions in silence. For the first time in his career, no one interrupted him. No one challenged him. No one tried to please him. He was forced to listen. To transcripts, to recordings, to testimonies from recruits who described feeling small, expendable, voiceless. One counselor asked him a simple question. "When did you decide fear was the only language people understood?" Mercer could not answer. Because the truth was uncomfortable. He had never decided. He had inherited it. Years later, the Academy would remember this period not as a scandal, but as a turning point. Not because of a speech. Not because of punishment. But because a woman stood silently under power's weight, and let it reveal itself. Major Elena Cross continued her work elsewhere, embedding briefly in systems that believed themselves flawless. She remained quiet, observant, unassuming, and everywhere she went, behavior changed, not when she arrived, but after she left. Because integrity, when witnessed honestly, alters environments long after it exits them. And those who remembered her understood something essential. That restraint is not surrender. That dignity does not demand defense. And that justice, when done right, does not roar. It waits. And when the truth finally speaks, it does not shout. It stands. If you want to see even better stories like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, leave a comment, and press the bell icon for more updates.